Thank you. Man, thank you for coming out. Dexter and I were just talking about, I do not understand LA at all. And I did not understand the complexities of the topography of this city and how big it is. I was like, can I walk to the bookstore tonight? It was 5 hours on Google Maps to walk here. It took me 3 days in a car to get here for this event. I started on Sunday. So thank you to anyone who doesn't live in Santa Monica. Holy crap. I know how big of an ass that is now. I did not know yesterday.
But you're actually the person who would look up how long it is to walk, and then would actually try it.
I was tempted. I was like, it'd be a good walk, but I didn't want to get sweaty for the talk.
Okay, I mean, I already am, but we'll talk about that. I walked like 45 minutes. I thought it'd be nice to just, get a little bit of walk in, get in the mode, that kind of thing. Yeah. So speaking of getting in the mode, so Craig and I know actually, I just looked up our first email, the first email you sent me.
Okay, yeah.
Actually, which is 10 and a half years ago.
Okay, nice.
Yeah. So it's been a while. And we were both in Japan, and I think you hit me up. Actually, we were talking about Takadanobaba. Yeah. And so Takadanobaba is a neighborhood in Japan, in Tokyo, which is known for, it's known for a large, famous university, Waseda University, prestigious one. But the particular area that we were just talking about is basically known for, around this time of year, actually, in May.
Okay.
It's known for, if you go there at night, you will see just scores of 19-year-olds splayed out, just blackout drunk, and you have to step over them, and it's just rivers of vomit. Yeah, that's what it's known. Like if you're from Tokyo, you know what this is. Like that's what you know Takadanobaba is. It's like, oh yeah, it's May. You don't go there now.
And I lived there for a few years, and I was contributing to the vomit river significantly when I was younger. And you lived there.
Yeah, I was living there for a bit. Actually, no. When you emailed me, I was living at Shibuya House. You remember Shibuya House? I looked at the email chain again. I tried to get you to come to the party at my house because I was living at this commune
behind Shibuya Station.
Kind of up in the Shibuya area. Okay. If anybody's seen Terrace House, like there's a couple people who like are on very early seasons of Terrace House who live there. But it was basically just a commune. It was an apartment which was really an art project that you lived in, and somehow I got myself living in there, and it was me and a bunch of other people, and we had 30 people live there. It was a very small apartment, and yes, 30 people lived there, and we had one bathroom. We didn't get sick often.
You told me basically you were all sleeping like gashuku style, like all in the same room, side by side. You just throw a stone down wherever there was space to sleep.
Yeah. One of the people called it Tetris style sleeping. Yeah.
So anyway, I'm excited because on this whole 6-week tour thing I'm doing, Dexter's the only person who has any real like Japan context. He's fluent in the language. He lived there. So for him to read this book for me was a real honor, and to be able to do this together is a real honor. So thank you for taking time.
I was honored to be able to read the book, especially early. And just to show of hands, who's read the book so far? Okay, you're for those who have not read it yet, read it. You're in for a ride. And the people who raise their hands, you know what we're talking about because you really are in for a ride. But speaking of getting to the mode, as I was saying earlier, I am going to actually ask you to pick up your own book because mine has like notes in it that I don't want you to read because it's probably embarrassing. Angry? No, there's no angry in there. Page 60, if you would.
60,
assuming
okay.
the pages are the same.
This is not my idea. Okay, page 60.
Yes.
Yeah.
And from the They Ask Me, if you could give me that, just go all the way through, please. Thank you.
To the end?
Yes, please.
Okay. Right. So the context is I'm staying with a old retired couple, and I'm staying at their like bed and breakfast, basically Japanese style. They ask me if I want a Western or Japanese breakfast. Most inns don't offer a choice. Most are Japanese style only. So when I get the chance, I go Western, if only to shake things up. Big mistake. She bakes me 5 loaves of bread. Can't believe I don't eat them all. The husband keeps gesturing for me to rip them apart and shove them down my gullet. They stand and watch as I carbo load. They are unusually touchy, squeeze my arms, check my body mass index. They use a translucent garbage bag to wrap up most of the bread. I tie it to my pack like a hobo. Just then, a woman who looked in her mid-30s opens the front door, strolls in as if she had been waiting for me to finish. "Oh, hey, this is our daughter," the wife says. "Hello," I say. "Nice to meet you. Your parents are trying to murder me with bread." She laughs. We chat for a bit, but I have to get walking. The distance looms large, about 25 kilometers, with significant elevation to the next inn. As the husband drives me down off the mountain back to the Iseji path, he breaks our silence by saying, "She ain't our daughter." I'm entranced by something out the window. Beyond the fields, past a dirt road, in the forest, something burns. Before I can register what he said, he continues with more fluency. "She just appeared 7 years back, wandering the country, needing a job, somehow found us. Not a daughter, but like a daughter. Time passes, life moves, and that's what happens. Things become other things."
Please. Did you know that was funny when you were writing it?
It was funny when I was experiencing it. It was
But not
insane.
not everything translates, you know what I mean? Yeah.
Well, it's so much of the translation here, too. I didn't do my bad Southern accent, but I think in the audiobook I actually do a Southern accent when I'm reading their dialogue. Because for me, like one of the things that has kind of frustrated me reading a lot of translated Japanese literature is there's no real acknowledgement of dialect, right?
Yeah.
And Japan is loaded with dialect. And everything kind of gets translated as sort of like BBC English. And when you're on this peninsula, which is south of Osaka, and it's remote because of the topography. There's a funny joke in here about LA that I can't think of right now, but the topography of the peninsula is such that you feel very, very remote down there, and the access is quite complicated, and the roads are pretty narrow. There's only one train line, and the language is just so fun. It's just, to me, I've spent a lot of time randomly in kind of Western North Carolina. My dad ended up moving there when I was like 14, kind of left everyone, was in Western North Carolina for a while, and I would kind of do these weird visits. And I ended up, when he died, he was basically a stranger to me. And I went back in 2011 to bury him. Everyone else was kind of gone.
Yeah.
And I get this call, "Hey, your dad's passed."
Yeah.
And I'm kind of the only relative left alive to go bury this guy. So I fly down there, and it's just this very surreal, bizarre experience of going to bury. You couldn't have picked a random person out of the phone book and had it been almost more of a stranger than this guy. And this is in 2011. I went down there, and I'm kind of rushing through trying to just get, he lived in this kind of small house in the woods in this tiny town that I'd never been to. And this weird thing happened where I became friends with this lawyer who had the will. He didn't have much. My dad had very, very little. But the will was with his lawyer in town, the only lawyer in town, and he was like 75 when I met him. And he was just this weird, southern, pulsing he was so smart, but he was also he had never left this town except for he fought in the Korean War. And he was a Bernie Sanders, like, staunch supporter. He loved Bernie Sanders. And he was just this weird enigma of a guy, and he kind of took it upon himself to make me believe that my dad loved me. It was very...
The lawyer.
It was this lawyer.
Yeah.
He kind of saw me as like, this weird dude coming from China or wherever. And
How often has that actually been said to you?
yeah, so many times.
Oh man, I wish we both, we could start a business, something like that. If we could both put the kind of money that for having that said together. Where did you go to again?
I think my grandmother died still believing I was living in China or something like that. But this guy ended up becoming this close friend. It was kind of this mutual redemption thing that was happening. He was trying to make me understand that my father probably had affection for me, and then he turns out was a terrible dad for all of his life, and he was like an alcoholic and just white liquor up the wazoo, and around 42 he just couldn't drink anymore. Suddenly, like that, just couldn't handle alcohol anymore. He stopped. Anyway, He has three sons, and I don't think he wasn't the greatest dad. And so he kind of saw this as this weird moment, I think, of adopting me. I was 30, he was 75, but it didn't feel like that. Anyway, we just liked each other. And I started hanging out with this guy who taught, he's like, I used to carry a gun because everyone wanted to shoot me. He put so many people in jail and everyone wanted to kill him, like when they got out of jail. So he always had his pistol. And would take me on these little adventures, and his wife would come, and I ended up going back to North Carolina several times a year from 2011 till 2020, basically. I would go just to visit him. I had nothing else in North Carolina.
Wow.
I'd go to visit this guy, and we'd go on drives, and you know, he had his prostate removed. At one point, he's like, never let him take your goddamn prostate. You know, I'm driving around. He's like, shit, I just pissed my pants again in your car. It's like there's pee all over the seat. But this guy was so wonderful, and his language, I felt such an intimacy with this random dude, and his sons were so confused. Because they were just like, why is the Chinaman coming back to hang out with my... are you trying to fuck my daddy? Like I kind of feel like that's what they were thinking, that I was trying to have sex with their daddy. Which I was not. I wasn't even trying to get in his will. I wanted more of his delicious English. His Southern English was so good. So anyway, long story short, when I'm in the peninsula and I'm talking to these people, I am transported back to, for me, the kind of Western North Carolina, Appalachian, Blue Mountains, stuff like that. So when I translated these people, that's who I had in mind. And that's why there's a sort of vernacular to the translation.
Yeah, you picked up the question before I even asked it, but I'm gonna keep going further then. You do this a lot in the book, actually, when you're translating, when you're relaying what somebody says. And for me, somebody who's, for better or for worse, read a lot of people who are describing Japan to other people, right? They'll use these things, they'll use these turns of phrase so that you know it's very obvious this person is Japanese. There's always some kind of affect in it. You know, there's always, you know, an italicized speech or something like that. You know, it'll always be, sumimasen, I'm sorry. You know, they'll always like slip that in there, which you don't do. And there's, I know you, so I should expect this, but the first couple of times I saw speech from a Japanese person, I had to reread it because I was thinking, hold on a second, this person's speaking English or Japanese? And I realized, oh no, they're just speaking, you know, because this is something I struggle with too. Like honestly, when I relay what somebody in Japanese is saying, I sometimes don't know what to do, honestly. Sometimes I'll just print it in Japanese and say, all right, bro, figure it out. Whoever you're reading, I'll just figure it out. And then, you know, but I won't always try to put it in some kind of dialect, but the way that you're doing it, I can sometimes, and for those who speak Japanese in the audience, like I think sometimes you'll be able to read things and you know kind of what you're getting at, what you're saying. But I want to pick that up, but before I forget, things become other things. So he said that.
He said that, yeah.
In Japan, what was that in Japanese?
Oh God, I've been trying to remember.
Yeah.
What did he say? Because it's one of these things where I'm doing these walks, and I wrote that down immediately after the conversation. I took the note, and I don't remember the exact phrase, but it was just so bizarre that he was talking to me about this woman who appeared that they introduced as their daughter.
Yeah.
Hey, this is our daughter. Yeah. And then in the car, he confessed to me, like this is like 5 minutes later. That weird need to confess really kind of stopped me in my tracks. And he was just talking about that shifting relationship that can happen with people. Yeah. And you know, in Japanese history, adoption's a big part of it. I write about that in the book a bit. But
say a little bit for the people who haven't. Yeah.
Well,
please.
Just you know, when you see that article that says this inn has been operating for 4,000 years with the same family. It's not the same family. It's, you know, they keep adopting new people to take on the family's name and sort of run the inn. So there is this kind of weird. Maybe this is like putting unnecessary Japanese words into translation, but there is this kind of weird mystical Orientalism that kind of I feel like can be sort of layered on top of some of this stuff. That feels a little weird. Like it's kind of missing the fact that there's something else at work here. It's not that this family has managed to keep this thing going forever. So there is this kind of ease of adoption that I don't think I've ever heard about really in America in the same way, of people being adopted into running things or taking over things and taking the names on. Like I met the guy who ran Mikimoto, the pearl company, for a long time. He was at Starbucks sitting next to me. He was this really fancy looking dude, and he was retired. And he was like flirting with everybody. And I was like, who is this guy? And we started talking, and he's like, oh yeah, I ran Mikimoto. And then we became friends. And he told me he married into the family, and then they adopted him. He took the name. And then when his wife died, they made him give it all up because they didn't want him to be an untethered Mikimoto out in the world. And I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
kind
I
of
mean,
fluidity of,
and I think, I mean, the fluidity of relationships that you talk about. I mean, frankly, it's throughout the book, right? Maybe another thing, kind of keeping in theme with, you know, some of the phrasing or whatever, is there's a phrase that you use a lot in the book. Yo-yo.
yeah, right.
Yo,
Yeah.
I love this word.
Yeah. Oh, I'm glad you like it.
Oh my gosh. You know, but it's one of those things where, okay, so I'm of two minds here. One is I struggle a little bit sometimes with, you know, yeah, have you ever heard about the Japanese idea of Kaizen? Like, it's the concept of Kaizen, and it's just, bro, Kaizen just means like improve.
Right.
That's not a phrase.
By the way, I met the guy who wrote Ikigai
Oh no.
the other day. He is so traumatized by that.
Oh no.
Yeah, no.
Really?
It was not his intent to do what happened.
I think people run with the stuff. Like they
Yeah.
don't even read it and they just sort of run with it.
He's this quiet Spanish dude who's just like, I wanted to write this book, we wrote it, and then suddenly his agent had it translated into 75 languages, and he sold 14 million copies, and he's Mr. Ikigai. And that was not, anyway, sorry, just a side note.
No, but
I feel so bad for him, but he's also super rich.
Wait, bad in what sense? In the just too much attention, or that people got annoyed with him?
Oh, he just like I think the vitriol that comes
Oh, no.
is thrown at him because people make fun of this stuff now.
Right.
I mean, which because there is this universe of books
Yeah.
that just co-opt Japanese words to try to sell their books or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, well, oh no, we were talking about somebody else, but Marie Kondo.
Yeah. What's her word?
Well, sparks joy, right?
Joy,
which
yeah.
is that's a good translation of tokimeki. Like that,
Tokimeki, right,
yeah,
right.
tokimeki.
Yeah, yeah.
That's good. I have nothing with that. But one of the things that I thought was really funny, so like I got to interview her, and one of the things that we cut out of this piece, which in hindsight I kind of wish we kept it, but I just wanted to know for myself. I asked her, why in the English edition and probably other editions does it say the Japanese art of tidying?
Right.
And she was just like, oh, the agent put it on there.
Right.
Like because it's not in the original.
Right.
It's just like how to tidy your place and like spark joy or whatever. And somebody slapped Japanese on there.
Yeah.
And she was completely uninterested in that, had zero interest in it because for her, there's nothing Japanese about it. She just came up with a good way to like throw away your old clothes.
Yeah, she just happens to be Japanese. Yeah.
Legit, yeah. And then, there's a bunch of money, and you could, at the end of that rainbow, and you can kind of tell that she didn't seem anti it, but she seemed a little perplexed.
Right.
Still.
Right.
Even at the stage of, Netflix show, she seemed a little perplexed. But I bring all that back because yo-yo is one of those words that I have felt like if I'm talking to people, like if I'm talking to somebody who speaks Japanese, it's just one of those things you just switch.
Yep.
Because you can't say it in English.
Right,
so,
right.
If a word has to get out there, let it be yo-yo. But how do you describe yo-yo? Because you use the word in the book a few times.
I think I describe it in the book too. It's sort of like realizing I had this space in my heart to forgive my father is basically on this walk. I'm in the middle of it. And there was just this kind of moment, this shocking moment where I realized I had grown enough to be able to do that. And it was very surprising. And the first time I actually ever heard the word used was 25 years ago, pretty much right about now. I'd hitchhiked across Japan.
Yeah.
So I spent like 3 weeks hitchhiking, blackout drunk the whole time across Japan. It was not, I mean, I talk about it I was just suffering. I was really suffering. And blackout drunk across all of Japan. Then we flew to Okinawa, and then we took a boat to Ishigaki. And in Ishigaki, I met a Japanese hippie who had just done a bunch of peyote. And I was like, hey, can we go get some ice cream? And I remember he was smiling. He's like, yo-you, man, yo-you. He's just like, yeah, we could do whatever you want. Whatever you need, we've got the space in our life and our hearts to do that. And I just remember, whoa. He taught me that word and konnichikato, which is how you say Connecticut in Japanese.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't know that word.
I was like, konnichikato. That's not what I would expect Connecticut to be translated as.
Yeah, That's amazing. You remember the time? You remember
I have.
That's when
vivid,
you learned the word.
Yeah, I have vivid memories of exactly when I learned certain words.
Wow. Is there another one?
Yeah. Nani nani tai, yaritai, tabetai. To want
to do something. Yeah.
I was walking in Ochanomizu with this girl, this fellow classmate who I was in love with, but she was also the first person I ever met who was having an affair with a married guy.
Ooh, okay,
She had a very fancy camera, and I just remember she got that from her. This guy was 25 years older than her, and he was a baseball player. And she had this amazing Leica, and I was so jealous of her Leica. And I was like, well, how did you get your Leica? She's like, oh yeah, my boyfriend who is this like professional baseball player bought it for me. But we were walking through Ochanomizu, and I was feeling all of the complicated emotions of being in love with this person who was taken by a much older man.
Who was a baseball player.
The baseball player. She was teaching me different phrases, and I remember that first 6 months of being in Tokyo were so like pregnant with these moments of hearing something or wanting to say something, wanting to express something, and then just asking for it. And I was surrounded by so many great people and teachers and other students who were just several levels above me. A bunch of kids that studied at SOAS in London,
Okay, yeah.
which is an incredible program. I don't know if you've met other SOAS kids.
Probably, yeah.
But they do year one in SOAS. Learning Japanese is so intense, and like 90% of people drop out. And they arrived, they'd only done 1 year, and there were 14 levels of Japanese at Waseda. I was like level 2 when I arrived. They'd done 1 year, and they were already at level 12, 13. So it was just like, they were way up there. So anyway, but...
Yeah, they had the whole rank there.
They had the whole,
rank.
yeah.
I dropped out.
I was with Eriko walking in Ochanomizu, and she taught me how to say, to want things. And I just remember, or like, ryokai. Ryokai I learned from this guy, Takanari.
Ryokai, yeah.
When I was standing right on the edge of Kabukicho. Standing right there looking at Kabukicho, and then I remember learning that word in a text from him, in a short mail.
Ryokai is like Roger.
Yeah.
Like, got it.
Roger
like
that.
Somebody said...
It's like a military affirmative.
It is a military thing. Yeah, ryokai, yeah.
Right.
But people just use it. I guess I have some like that. Something different. Honestly, the only thing that jumps to my mind is... This is one of those things when you realize that you don't know things, like you don't know what you don't know. Being actually on the road from Takadanobaba to Waseda, and somebody telling me that my face was small.
Oh yeah, yes.
And then I thought that was a little weird. And I was
Yeah.
just like, okay, yeah. And then somebody else said it, and I hadn't been in Japan that long. And I was like, these people are really rude. Like that's what, but also what a strange insult.
Yes.
Yes. Like I just met you.
Yeah.
And it kept being said to me, and then I don't remember how I figured this out, but somebody told me, no, that's a compliment.
Right.
Like it's good to have a small face.
Right.
And I had an afro at the time, and so I thought it was something about my hair, and maybe it did make my face look smaller.
Right.
But I was utterly bewildered.
Yeah.
For the longest, and it would just be things like that where I would hear something and then not get it, and then just sort of suffer in silence while I didn't understand what they were saying. Like the first time I heard like "osori irimasu" at a store, like, are you afraid of me? Like what?
Right.
It kind of sounds like the word for scary, and
Right,
like
right,
you know,
right.
it's like, whoa, what are we talking about? At least I thought it did at the time. So yeah, there's a lot like that. But yeah, yo-yo is such an interesting word because it can mean, you know, when I do try to use it in English, what I end up doing is switching to the word bandwidth, which is this really strange word that we've started using just in normal, or at least a certain class of people have started using in English. Like, oh, I don't really have the bandwidth for that.
Yeah.
In Japanese, you would say yo-yo, right? Like, oh, like I really don't have the time for that. I don't have the mental space. And then it gets a little bit deeper, you know, kind of not spiritual space, but just, there's just too much going on in my life. I can't do that. And so that bandwidth has started to take the place of this word that I think we sort of needed in English a little bit. But yo-yo can also mean, you know, if you're watching a boxing match or something like that, and one of the boxers is like laughs in the middle, like, oh, that's yo-yo, right? Like he's totally got this.
Right.
He knows he's gonna win. He's just like utter confidence. Yep. And so it can really mean a lot of things. But one of the things that I find interesting that you do in the book is you don't really exotify it. You know what I mean? And that's something you could have. I mean, you could have subtitles of this like things become other things. It's Tale of Yo-Yu, and second edition. Right?
Yeah, that's a paperback.
Yeah, there you go.
We need to sell some of those.
Listen, hey, but what you do more is you use it like that, and you use it in these, you kind of use the phrase, you explain it just a tiny bit, and then you keep using it through the book in different ways, so that I think there's a way in which it becomes more powerful because you start to understand why you're using the word, but then also it takes some of that weird foreignness away from it. Because I think one of the things that does tend to happen, with ikigai, with kaizen, kintsugi, all these words that, start to, the Japanese really care about this in their culture. It's just not, bro. They're just like, they're doing stuff like what we do, you know what I mean? But it prevents the reader from being able to put it at arm's length and identify it as something that is foreign, oriental, Japanese, weird, exotic. And this is just a word that exists within the vocabulary of your book, like untethered. You know what I mean? Like words like that. Yeah. Yeah. It seems intentional.
Yeah, well, it's good to hear that that means a lot for you to pick up on that.
So it is intentional.
Yeah, it's very intentional. I mean, look, this is my home, right? I mean, I've been there for 25 years. I'm not leaving. And so what's to exotify? That's kind of how it's where I live. And so I really bristled even at writing about Japan for most of my life.
Really?
I mean, all throughout my 20s, early 30s, I really didn't write. If you look at my old writing, I was writing about digital books.
Yeah. Bokura no jidai no hon.
Bokura no jidai no hon. Yeah, I had a book about Japanese about digital books as I was trying to never talk about them again. It was a little complicated relationship with that publisher. They wanted me to really talk about it. I didn't want to. But no, the writing about it was really as a last resort, like where I felt pushed to a place. I don't even want to say like earned. I finally had done enough. I'd earned, and I'd put in enough, whatever, like shoe leather or something to be able to write a little bit about Japan. But look, I started walking because in around 2012, 2013, I was trying to figure out what, I live here. I need to find some purpose, I guess. Mm-hmm. I wasn't employed by a Japanese company. Yet I had, back then I was still on an artist visa, but I was getting 5-year artist visas that were basically, as long as you didn't murder anyone and paid your taxes, you could keep them going forever. Now I'm on permanent residence, it's like basically a green card. But, that when John, one of the guys in the book, who this sort of mentor, incredible figure, again, a guy who never, ever, ever, and if I learned anything, I've learned all this from watching John. He never others anyone, he never exotifies Japan. He's 1,000,000% just meeting Japan where Japan is, needs nothing from it. I think there is this weird, if you read a lot of the writing in the 80s and 90s about Asia, it's people expecting something from the place almost to a certain degree, or writing about it from this elevated position looking down at the place.
Try 2020s.
Yeah, sure, exactly. This is why I was so terrified to ever write about it, because I didn't want to ever in any way write in that way about the place.
Well, I mean, just being realistic, and you and I both know this, we've talked about this a little bit, there are people for whom you are the Japan guy. You are the Japan whisperer. And we know this. Look, man, look. No. And this is something that you deal with as an artist with an audience, right? Yeah. And going further, there are certainly a lot of people who would much rather hear about Japan from a white dude than an Asian face.
Right.
And that's just the reality.
Yeah.
And through the text, through the lines, I do sense a little bit of responsibility that you seem to feel some in there.
Yeah, well, and also I think if people pick this up expecting, like, let's go on a walk on the Kumano Kodo, they're going to be let down. Because there's just so much. It's not a super easy, breeze through beach read. And there's a lot going on there. And part of that is maybe a response to not wanting to be just, let me take you on this mystical Kumano Kodo walk. There's more to it. There's more layers to it.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
You never name your hometown.
No.
we never talked about this actually, but I did not know really too much about your hometown.
Okay.
I really didn't. And when we met, when we talked, it was, I don't know, it's probably about like similar experiences that we had, being around Waseda and stuff like that. We're both into music, and so I'd been writing about music. You were, we were kind of comparing notes there. We're also both into weird esoteric computer stuff. We played a bunch of video games.
I just couldn't believe that there was this like interesting intellectual living in Takadanobaba. That was like, I saw your Twitter bio.
That I was sober.
Yeah, your Twitter bio.
I wasn't lying in a pool of vomit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I saw that. I was like, oh my God, I need to connect with this guy. And I felt really, I'd seen you'd been there for a while, and I felt like, oh my God, I'd missed years of us being able to hang in Tokyo. That's really how I felt when we met. 'Cause you were on the way out.
Yeah, I was about to leave.
Yeah.
We hung out a bunch, and it was in the last like
12
month.
seconds.
It was like last month and a half that I was there. But so the thing about you not naming it is not naming the town that you're from is I kept reading and I kept wondering. Okay, when are you going to tell me where this place is? Because we never talked about that either.
Right.
But you know why I appreciated it is because, and I don't know if you intended it, but man, that place is a lot like where I grew up in some really strange ways.
Mm-hmm.
You talk about, making, it formerly being a place where, they made airplane engines, and what do airplane engines do in the 40s? Where do they fly to? What are they doing? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
San Bernardino, March Air Force Base.
Yeah.
That's what we were doing, right? And one of the reason actually I went to Japan for the first time was because there is a sister city relationship between San Bernardino and Tachikawa, where Tachikawa, they had an Air Force base that is now a park. March Air Force Base is, we just didn't do anything with it, basically. But, the whole, like, industrial town, depressed, most people don't leave.
Yeah.
And I did not know this about you. And then as reading it, I realized, oh, maybe some of this makes sense now. Like, I don't know if I'm totally explaining myself here, but yeah, I think some of our conversations and some of the things that you say and some of the things you do started to make sense because, and I appreciated that, I don't know if you're doing this on purpose, but you're allowing somebody who experienced, frankly, one of the underlying themes in this book. It really, truly, there's parts that are about Japan, but a lot of this really is about being able to see the violence of American society. And you really lived in one of those, I don't want to say hot spots, but you lived in a very American town.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Are you intending for people to be able to see that? Is that why you don't use the town?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
I just think it's way more universal than just this one place. I think a lot of people have experienced a similar kind of childhood, and also I don't want to shit on my town either. It's like, and not that the book is shitting on anything.
Yeah.
It's just naming facts. And even if you just look at the GDP figures for things, it's shocking. These places like post-industrial places like my town, you look at the U.S. GDP, which is so high. Per capita GDP in America is so freakishly high.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Richest country in the world.
80, 90,000, close to 100,000 per capita. That's bananas. Japan, you know what Japan is?
No, what is it?
It's like 35K.
Really?
Yeah, it's like 35, 40K. It is
Nuts.
It's like half of the U.S. per capita GDP. And knowing that, it's really infuriating to a certain degree when you think back on the resources, the uneven distribution of resources. Anyway, and that's, I think, what I felt as soon as I got to Tokyo was being in this place where, holy crap, I'm walking past tens of thousands of people a day, and the opportunity distribution is way more even than anywhere I had seen. And I think that shook me when I got to the city, because it was illuminating over more and more just how scarcity induced, or scarcity like mindset beset everyone from my town was, and me including. Even to this day, I'm still catching myself being freakishly scarcity mindset operating.
Yeah. I mean, I told you I was just in Skid Row today.
Right.
And it's super weird being here.
Right.
But I think maybe that was, maybe that's the best mode to be in, really, is because that's what you do in the book. Is you go in this place, and it's not that Japan is this magical wonderland where everybody's equal, because it certainly is not,
No.
and it's certainly not perfect, but it does, I think being anywhere, frankly, lets you realize just how absolutely bizarre the United States is. Anybody ever compared you to J.D. Vance before?
God, I'm gonna shave this beard off. No, thank God.
Never.
I don't know. No.
Have you never thought of this?
I mean, some people have been like, it could be Hillbilly Elegy Part 2 if you really want it. You know, that's not what I'm going for, though.
Yeah, because there's a lot of people, I interviewed him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was nuts.
You've interviewed. Who haven't you interviewed?
Just those two.
Who here hasn't been interviewed by Dexter? You've all been interviewed.
I'm pulling those out because they're relevant.
Right.
But, I say that because there is a version of Craig Mott who you said you don't want to shit on your town, right?
Yeah.
Because, people from his town, a lot of people are super pissed at him.
Yeah.
Really, really angry at him. Yeah. Yeah, I've been yelled at for not going hard enough on him. And this was before the Trump election. This is in 2016, right? There are people who are extremely upset at him because they feel like you are talking about us as though everybody is making the decision to be poor.
Yeah,
You are paying absolutely no attention to what is happening on a systemic level, on a societal level. You know what I mean?
Well, and that's, I hope that comes through super strong in this book.
Yes, yeah.
Right? That's the whole core
Yeah.
of this book, is it's not any of these people's fault. It's not, the parents' fault. It's not, whatever, Brian's parents' fault, my parents' fault. It's like they were caught up in this system where they had absolutely no decision-making power whatsoever. And the trickle-down was so anemic, there's just nothing trickling down. When I think about, I was in marching band, and I think some of the first moments I realized the disparity, the wealth and the opportunity disparities was going with our marching band to play at the football game at the rich high school.
Yeah.
And just looking at our drums versus their drum, our drum, I was hitting a fucking snare drum head that was 40 years old. I didn't even know they could last 40 years. And going to drum camp up at UMass, I remember I was lucky to be able to go do that, and I didn't even know what, it was like they were playing on alien instruments. It was just that gap was crazy. But you realize, the school didn't decide that, no one in the town decided that. Anyway, and
No, this is totally relevant, yeah.
and it tries to, the thing I had this kind of rule, which is, look, I'm just relaying facts about our experience as kids, and not in any way ever blaming anyone who was in that periphery.
Well, I think the reason I bring that up is, not just to be goofy, but because I think especially right now, we are at a stage where we've gotten extremely individual, right? And we're often looking for, why is something going wrong? Oh, it's because this particular person made this bad decision, and that is why they are there.
Yeah.
People driving their Teslas through Skid Row.
Yeah.
That I can feel that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's what they will tell you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's how they feel. And I can feel the, not just refusal to do that, but almost pushing further and really trying to show the reader, this is why my hometown is like this. But then also, this is another way to respond.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
What do you mean by that? Another way?
Well, another way to respond in sense of how you respond.
Right.
And this is again, this is sort of the joke I made about J.D. Vance, but it's easy to say I'm special.
Right. God, no. I'm lucky as shit. That's all I am. And honestly, my response in my 20s was to try to kill myself. That was it. There was no, there was just no framework, no archetypes, no mentors or anything.
Yeah.
And I think that's why a lot of people who leave these places that are suffering or economically depressed is you try to leave, and then you see the abundance out there in others, and that gap is so violent internally. You turn back. I know so many people who try to leave, try to go. I'm going to go to New York. I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to go to Boston. I'm going to figure this out, and then they can't do it because you don't have almost like the psychological framework to be able to parse out the craziness of that.
Yeah.
And in the last couple of years, I've had this weird media thing happen, right, with Morioka. which dovetails with this. I just want to.
Yeah. Just okay. If you're not familiar with this, also imagine that, like, some combination of like Jay Leno, David Letterman, like Larry King, like said, like just imagine putting all those three people together, and then that person says, "Hey, Craig, I'd like to interview you and talk to you," and Craig's like, "Who are you?" Just incredible. Like I love how like sometimes you tell me people and I have absolutely no idea who you're talking about. I cannot believe you didn't know who this cat was.
Right. Yeah. So
Amazing.
So a couple years ago, New York Times asked me.
Tell the story.
Yep.
But maybe after that we'll do a Q&A.
Yep. Sounds
Amazing.
good.
Sign books.
Perfect.
Yeah. Awesome.
Sounds good. This will be a 35-minute story. So a couple years ago, New York Times was like, "Hey, do you have anywhere to recommend?" And I had been doing these linear walks. Just to talk about walking a little bit, but I've been doing Tokyo to Kyoto, Kyoto to Tokyo, all around the Kii Peninsula, linear, no trains, no scooters or whatever. And I was like, well, can we do other things? And so I was like, what if I picked 10 mid-sized cities that no one ever goes to, and I would walk 50K in each city, and just see how that felt. And so I did it. I went from Hokkaido all the way down to Kagoshima, and went to all these cities. One of the cities I went to was Morioka. And this is in Iwate, it's up north. No one in 23 years had ever told me you should go to Morioka. And I went to Morioka, and it was great. It was just this beautiful little town, historic, had this castle, park, lots of great coffee, good scones, weirdly, really good soba, 16th generation iron workers, interesting craftspeople, just a wonderful, wonderful place. And so in the New York Times, it was like, hey, do you want to recommend a city anywhere in the world? It wasn't like, hey, Japan guy, tell us about Japan. I was like, oh, Morioka. This was like a big shock to me that no one had ever mentioned. I said, and I wrote my 200-word, like little thing. You write this tiny little thing. And I was like, yeah, this is a good city. And they don't tell you where it's going to be on the list. They don't tell you if it's going to be on the list. The list comes out in January 2023. Number 1 is London, and number 2 is Morioka. And Japan did not understand how to process this. And I felt really bad because I was like, fuck, how do I help them understand this? And then they found out I speak Japanese, and so then it was just this tidal wave of newspapers and magazines and TV. Yeah. And the mayor was like, hey, do you want to come up and say hello? And I was like, great, I'd love to say hello to you, Mayor of Morioka. And I went up there, and they didn't tell me anything about anything. And they're like, oh, yes, Modo-san, come this way. He's in here. And they opened the doors, and the room looked like this, except all of you were reporters. And it was just like network cameras, TV crews, like everyone's like paparazzi, rapid fire, photoing me, and the mayor's like sitting on a throne in the back. And I'm
totally normal behavior.
Totally befuddled. They bamboozled me. And I go in the back and I say hello to the, hello, mayor. We shake hands. We're sitting like this. You're the mayor. And he says like 2 words and he's like, good luck. And then he leaves me. And it's just this room of journalists, and there's a mic, and they stand up, and they're lining up to ask me questions. The first guy goes, Moto-san, how do we solve poverty? And I was like, oh, man, guys, I just like your coffee. Honestly, I'm just so above my pay grade. I don't have any advice for you as a city. But more and more, I'm doing these, I took those interviews because I felt an ethical duty, having put the spotlight on this place that was not asking for it. And I did not know it was going to go this big, to help them explain and extract from this as much value as possible, positive value, and not over-tourism value. And it's far enough away from tourist areas that over-tourism isn't an issue with them. And, I'd start doing these TV interviews, and they'd be like, what's your favorite soba? And I'm like, my favorite soba is national health care. And so we just started talking about, like, how does a city like this, why does it feel so good to me? And, I'm basically speaking from this place of weird American traumas that Japanese people can't really empathize with.
Yeah.
Because there aren't towns like mine to the same degree in Japan.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, look, I'm being healed by you guys and the lives you've been able to build and the archetypes you represent for me. And I want to make you aware of the things in the social infrastructure that allow that all to happen, that allowed all this goodness I feel to happen, because that needs to be protected. So it ended up turning into this really sweet thing, and then this guy Tamori-san reaches out, who I had no idea who he was, and he wanted to go to the
National
town.
treasure.
National treasure. He's been on TV every day for 50 years in Japan.
Yeah.
And he has not sexually harassed anyone as far as we know. he's very clean for an 80-year-old Japanese guy. This is like, maybe he's the only one. So he's got a very stellar reputation, and he's beloved by everybody. And the apotheosis of all this craziness was, we went for a walk in the city together, and I said yes to it just because I wanted to give that gift to the city of this guy coming, because I know it means so much to them. And I mean, people just crying, screaming, stopping their cars, like it was like walking with John Lennon. It was really, we walked through this market with hundreds of people, and it was just like parting the Red Sea. I was getting goosebumps. I mean, I've never been next to someone who's been that beloved by everyone, from like 5-year-old to 85-year-old. It was pretty special. But that to me felt like a great transmutation of what I grew up experiencing, and the goodness I've been feeling in Japan, and trying to kind of, I don't know, like emerging from my 20s, not dying somehow, and trying to, wrap that up in some sort of interesting package. The economic impact has been about $100 million. So
amazing.
200 words to $100 million economic impact. I mean, I'm not going to beat that.
That's pretty good ratio there.
Anyway, it feels, and I've been back many times, and it has not destroyed the town, thank God. Anyway, it's been an interesting journey, but it felt like, I don't know, like I was very lucky to end up where I was, and to kind of try to do some good with that. Kind of felt aligned with that.
So before we go to Q&A, real quick, lightning round, 6 questions.
Boom.
All right. So first thing that comes to mind, answer honestly. Mm-hmm. All right, sushi or pizza toast?
Pizza toast.
Pizza toast, okay. Izakaya or jazz kissa?
Jazz kissa.
Okay, all right, Dragon Ball or Akira?
Akira, only because I've never watched Dragon Ball or read Dragon Ball.
We were cool until we were friends. Wow, that's irresponsible of you. All right, okay, so fill in or finish the sentence.
Okay.
Instead of ramen, you should eat.
More ramen.
Okay. Instead of Tokyo, you should go to.
Morioka.
Okay. Instead of city pop, you should listen to.
Wajazu.
Ooh, wajazu. Okay. All right. Japanese. Yes. Yeah. Instead of Helvetica, you should use.
Untitled Serif.
I have no idea what that is, but I figured.
That's what all my books are set in.
I figured you had an opinion on that. I just had to get there. All right, everyone. Craig Mogg.
Thank you, Dexter.
So please, someone ask questions, because otherwise I will keep asking questions, because I have a lot. First person up here. Yeah,
Sure.
go for it.
So huge fan of your newsletters, and I remember when you had the pop-up newsletter for the Key walk. Did you know that something like this book would come out of that walk, or were you planning on going into that walk with this sort of idea, or did it just come out of it as you were going through it?
So the question was, when I did the walk that became this book, I did that 4 years ago, almost. Right at this moment, I was in the middle of it. I was on day 11 of the walk 4 years ago right now. And the question was, did I know I was going to do anything with it? Absolutely not, no. In fact, I thought, I finished the walk, I had 30 days, I probably had like 60-ish thousand words, 70,000 words I'd written during the pop-up. And then I thought in September, okay, I'm going to, in 21 days, edit this down to a book and be done. And I started a diary newsletter called Nightingale and Gale, which some of you may be subscribed to, and it was 21 issues was the goal, and I just sent out like 299 or something, issue 299. So I did not know where this was going, and yeah, the plan wasn't for this to become a book. But that said, of all the other pop-ups I've done as well, I would like to take the time to bookify. They all, to me, are kind of the drafts of books. So if I can ever shut up and go home and sit in one place to get them done, maybe they will become books.
Awesome, thank you.
Thanks for following along.
You sort of touched on this just a second ago, but what would you tell Japanese people to observe more about their own country? But also, what would you tell visitors to really open their eyes to better understand and appreciate their country?
I mean, for visitors, so the question was like, what would I tell Japanese people to be maybe more aware of? I think just what I've been doing in the interviews, honestly, it's just this social infrastructure that allows these certain things that we love about Japan. So the bizarre jazz kissa that has been going for 50 years in this strange spot in this corner of Tokyo, I mean, that's enabled by a bunch of social infrastructure zoning. You know, I think Emergent Tokyo is a great book about kind of how Tokyo's been zoned and why Tokyo looks the way it looks and functions the way it functions. And I think a lot of the zoning has allowed for a lot of housing options. I mean, part of why I spent my 20s in Tokyo, why I didn't, why to me it felt like the place to stay and kind of nurture my creative impulse was it was so cheap to live there. It was so cheap. In Takadanobaba, I was paying $500. How much
Yeah.
were you paying for your share house?
Oh, not much. But then again, I mean, we were literally like Tetris sleeping,
yeah.
so
But
that doesn't matter.
But like,
But I had a place that was about this. I was paying probably for a 400 square foot, 300 square foot maybe, 600, 700, something like that. It wasn't expensive. Yeah, if that.
So you can easily live under $1,000 a month. I mean, my budget was $1,000 a month for all my 20s. So if I hit $1,000, I could pay my rent, I could eat good food, I could go out, I kind of could live richly, which was impossible to do in San Francisco or New York. That's what it felt like to me. And I could live right in the middle of the city. And so I think that in Japan, it's weird. I really feel like there should be this almost, Paris in the 20s sort of thing happening with artists and creative people in Tokyo because it is so inexpensive and you can be in the thick of it and you can be inspired by the infrastructure and the life of a city and the energy of a city without having to pay these kind of premiums. So just being aware of those kind of incredible gifts that I felt, mainly because my point of view was so skewed from compared to where I came from. Just trying to make people be aware of that and not more and more. The big change you've seen in the last decade architecturally is that there are tawa mansion now, right? So they're these big, extremely tall, not affordable housing apartments. They're called mansion in Japanese, and they are just. It's the first real sign of extreme wealth that Tokyo's, I think, has had. I mean, in the early 2000s,
Maybe stratification.
Yeah.
Maybe would be another
Yeah,
way to put it.
stratification, yeah. Like
Because people have been rich before.
people have been rich, but it's never been on display like the tower mansions are now. So it's like you see these apartments and that's $6 million, that's $7 million, something like that, which you didn't. It was all kind of a little bit more hidden and wasn't so ostentatious. Anyway, that's kind of bizarre. So seeing Mori, and I always talk shit about Mori, and they're never going to work with me. But seeing Mori kind of rip the city apart and replace it with these malls and these basically like mega developments has been pretty heartbreaking. So just seeing what we're losing in that, and then recognizing all these other areas that still have the original kind of Edo style, energy, I think is important. And then for visitors to go, honestly, if it's your first time, I don't think you're gonna be able to parse anything. Like it's impossible. Maybe Dex has a good bit of advice for a first-time visitor, but like I just say, do whatever you're gonna do. Go wherever you're gonna go. Because if I send you to a jazz kisa in Morioka, I don't think you're gonna really understand necessarily the difference between like walking around Gion to a certain degree.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, honestly, for both, honestly, for people who live, for Japanese people and for visitors, I would say embrace the diversity, honestly, because Tokyo especially is super diverse. I mean, go to the Indian restaurant and figure out why they all certain sorts of Indian restaurants. First off, nobody there is Indian. They're all from somewhere else. Also, they put out the same kind of food unless you go like a slightly higher tier of Indian food, and then it's like better. But it's like Japanese Indian food is extremely interesting. Japanese Turkish food also is extremely interesting, just the taste and whatnot. But I wrote about, like, I was really interested in Japanese hip hop. That's what I was working on when I got there. And it's just changed because a lot of the younger generation is mixed. And that is something that Japan is still kind of figuring out. And I would say if you want to understand, again, I would say, for people who live in Japan, like, you're getting more diverse. This is an interesting, good thing. Embrace it. You were already in the past. It's getting more diverse. Like, let's lean into that. But then for, visitors, I would say, if you want the authentic Japanese experience, that's going to be like the Iranian dude on the corner, like, you're just like hanging out or whatever. Like, that's part of it. You know what I mean? That's part of it. That, the Chinese family that is, just moved in next door, that's part of the authentic Japanese experience now, truly, especially in a large city. So I would say, yeah, lean into that, because that's authentic right now, really. And it's the future.
Good answer. Something like, statistically, it's like 30-40% of all kids born in Shibuya-ku now are mixed. It's like a really, really high percentage.
Yeah, and
Japan's gonna have to.
It's changing the cultural landscape.
Yeah.
Like, no doubt. Yeah, if you want to quote unquote understand Japan, like, go see that.
Yeah,
Because the rest of the stuff you can see on TV.
convenience stores too. Now it's in Tokyo. When's the last time you were in Tokyo? Pre-COVID or?
Yeah, pre-COVID, man.
So even
Yeah.
since then, the number of Nepalese working at convenience stores, it's gone from 0 6 years ago to, I would say, 50% in central Tokyo.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
It was already high.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's going up. In the middle of my big walks, walking from Kyoto to Tokyo, the reason why I like walking the not scrubbed bits, so a lot of people who say I walked the Nakasendo, walked Tsumago to Magome, this little bit of like perfectly scrubbed bit of Nakasendo. I like to walk all the other bits, the less scrubbed, the sort of just the more real. And I'll be walking in the middle of nowhere in Aichiken, and a Nepalese guy on a bicycle will bike past me, and then he'll turn around and be like, "What are you doing?" And I'll be like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "I work at the bento shop down the road," and to just see a random 22-year-old Nepalese guy, and his only questions for me was, "How many girlfriends do you have, and how do I have more girlfriends?" That's all he wanted to know is girlfriends. God, he wanted so many girlfriends. But like, if you don't do the walks and you don't go to these kind of interstitial spaces, you're not going to see that. And that is, as Dexter said, that's part of Japan today.
Yeah, if you spend enough time, you end up having conversations with Russian people and Japanese because they don't speak English and you don't speak Russian, and you got to get through it.
We do speak English.
They speak, because they live there. You know what I mean? And so, anybody, yeah. So, yeah.
One more quick question.
Keep going. Yeah.
We do a quick one, but technically the store closes at 8.
Okay.
Oof, okay.
We
Yeah.
want to have time to everybody get in there and talk to you and sign it.
Okay.
So if we do a quick question.
One super quick question.
Get in there. Yeah.
You got to self identify as quick.
What does, why is it specialty?
Why is which one?
Goodies are good enough.
Oh, goodies are good enough? Yeah, I mean, I probably should have done like a stand by me. So my members only section, the password in the login was Goonies was the login, and the password are good enough to my members only section for years. And everyone just had that. No one had an individual login. Just that movie, I mean, I don't think I've watched a movie more than Goonies. That Goonies and Stand By Me. Goonies I didn't really understand because socioeconomically that whole like part of Oregon was like way above where we were. But Stand By Me felt very much like, it's like I know all these kids. In fact, these kids are us. Like, and the outcome of Stand By Me was very similar to the outcome of Brian. But just in that wheelhouse of these two movies that you just watched over and over and over again as a kid, and just thinking about the world out beyond. And so yeah, just important space.
One word. What's the secret to living an interesting life like yours?
Just full days. Full days. That's it.
All right, everyone.
Thank you.
Good break.
Thanks.